Hey, welcome on in, guys. Tobin here with you. Like I said, I wanted to do a separate video to talk about the Jimmy Butler stuff just because I enjoy the game and I wanted to talk about a lot of stuff in the games, particularly Nikola Jovic's performance. And then we get to the Jimmy Butler stuff in another video, and we'll rock with it like that, dude. So, Jimmy Butler today, like the gem of a troll that he is. If you guys saw, of course, there was the theory online that Jimmy Butler was sending subliminal messages with the teams that he would be open to being traded to, that all of a sudden he has been wearing the hair dye has been matching those teams. Gold for Golden State, red for the Rockets, blue for the Mavericks. And it was a funny thing. And the thing that I like about Jimmy is he will lean into a good troll. And so the guy gets on his Instagram before the game today. Right as I'm about to go to, as I just park at the arena, I take out my phone. I look at it. I'm like, there it is. Him in orange. And I know that this has been suggested, but, with the Phoenix Suns buzz that's been around, but that's funny. And I think most people took it as funny. A lot of people, I think some people are sick of the Jimmy trolling, and some things, some people roll their eyes at it and they're done. I just genuinely found it funny. I like the fact that Jimmy can troll. I like the fact that he can have fun with this stuff. I like that about him. That's me personally. I think this stuff is funny. He has been a troll. He will have fun with the internet. It's what you're supposed that is why, to me, he is more interesting than a lot of these other NBA players who get in their feelings about stuff or aren't interesting. Why he was the only interesting guy on that starting five show, other than maybe Anthony Edwards. Everybody else was a bore, even LeBron. And this is funny. It's just funny. If you're in the middle of a controversy and somebody thinks that you're sending subliminal messages and you see this, you're like, that's funny. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm actually going to do that with a team that I supposedly want to be traded to. But not only that, but that my agent is causing a ruckus and headlines saying that that all of this stuff is fabricated. It's funny. So I enjoyed it. And I'm all for Jimmy Butler having a little bit of fun with this. I don't know how this ends up. I don't know if this means that Jimmy Butler's staying or going. I just think in the midst of a controversy or something that could be interpreted, a little levity is fun. And it is. And he said after the game today, he goes, there are no subliminals with my hair.
Jimmy, just because stylists want to know, what was the message with the orange hair tonight and what went into the decision to go orange?
I can change my hair to whatever color I want to. And there is no subliminals in my hair. I just, I've been changing it a lot lately. Orange was the brightest color that I had, so that's what I went with.
Which, he's not lying. I mean, the subliminal is, I'm having fun messing with you guys. And I'm having fun. Like, everybody on the team, I'm watching this in the line, I'm like, everybody is laughing their ass off of this. Bernie, the mascot, even changed his hair to have orange braids. It was fun. It's fun. It's sports, guys. And I enjoyed it very much. Now, that's not to say all of Jimmy Butler's press conference today was positive. And take of this what you will. But Jimmy Butler was asked about his agent going after Shams, and the first part of this answer was cool. The second, but he does stick it with a landing that kind of just made me go, "Oh no, that was an interesting." My point was like, "Oh, that was kind of an interesting way to end that and stick the landing on that." When he was asked about it by Ira Winderman.
Jimmy, it was an interesting last couple of days. Your agent responded on social media to reports pretty vociferously. One, what did you read into those reports, and what's it like watching your agent go back and forth with the worldwide leader?
I love it. I love it. I am all for the back and forth. I mean, before he's my agent, that's like I guess we're like brothers now. We do everything together. But I feel for him, and at least somebody's sticking up for me.
That was a little bit interesting there at the end. At least somebody sticking up for me. I don't know what to read into that because my initial reaction was, ooh, like, is that saying that you don't feel like the Heat have your back? Like, because we haven't heard Jimmy be very snippy or scarred by the fact that the Heat wouldn't give him an extension. You know, like he has held the company line and towed the company line in a pretty great way. And it was a little thing, but it was a pretty, I don't know. I was like, when he ended it with that, I was like, ooh, that was kind of a cut. Because like it started off as a funny answer, and it was like, oh, that's cool. Like good on him. I'm glad that he's having fun with it. I'm glad that he likes the fact that his agent is sticking up for him and causing a ruckus and having some fun. But at the end, when he's like, yeah, and at least somebody's sticking up for me, I was like, ooh, whoa. I was like, whoa. All right. That's it. That I don't know if that spoke well of how he does actually feel towards the organization. And maybe he just feels like, maybe he feels like the idea that, oh, he's either not going to cause problems, and that's always everybody's impression, is that he's going to cause problems and he's going to rattle the cage and it's going to be a really nasty exit. And trust me when I tell you guys, like, I don't know if that will be the case or won't be the case, but I made this point today when I was on with Salon on the pregame show. I really feel like if Jimmy wanted to make a stink, I feel like he would have done it already. You know, I would have felt like if Jimmy Butler was truly hurt about the money thing, I feel like the Heat and him would have already parted ways. Like this would have already gotten done if he wasn't about seeing through the last year. Now, what's going to happen with all this? Like, is there going to come a point where he does ask out? Like, I don't know, because I don't know what's going to change. Like, I don't know if Mickey Harrison's going to wake up one day and be like, "Hey, come on, big fella, take the extra year and let's call it let's call it a day." You know, I don't know if that happens. I don't think it's going to. I don't foresee that happening. And until then, Windhorst made this point today. He goes, expect more Jimmy Butler rumors and I think other people are like, hey, who are around this? Expect more noise around this. The noise is not going anywhere. The one interesting thing, though, is with this Suns thing. Like, the Suns thing, I guess, peaked up again today because, that to me was just the oddest thing about it because I really don't see the match, because the match that I'm seeing from one of these reporters, John Gambadoro, who hosted radio. I don't know if he hosts anymore, but he hosted radio for a long time out in Phoenix. He's very plugged into all things Suns. Very good NBA insider. He's got juice, and this is what he had to say on the Jimmy thing. He had a couple of tweets on it today, right? And he, first of all, flat out said that Shams was right. He basically put it out there like that. Like, Shams is, he says, Shams is not incorrect. From what I've heard, Jimmy Butler is interested in the Phoenix Suns. Okay. He also then retweeted his own tweet, which said, when he reported that, I do not believe Miami has interest in Beal from what I've heard. Maybe why the Suns are the leaders in the clubhouse. It's certainly not because Phoenix has a lot to offer, which did turn out to be true. And he says, I took a beating from Heat fans at the time. So that's why I just bring that up, just to say, yeah, the guy knows his stuff. But he says, are the Suns interested in Jimmy Butler? The answer is, it depends. The Suns were 11-2 with KD, so I would expect them to give the roster until mid to late January to make a decision, and how they play over the next 10 to 15 games will ultimately determine what they do trade-wise. But he says, Shams is not incorrect. From what I've heard, Jimmy Butler is interested in the Suns. And then he said, and so this is what he added on to that a little bit later. He says, what we have said is, 1, Jimmy Butler is interested in the Suns. I expect the Suns are going to play this out for the next 15 games or so and see where they're going before doing anything and see if they can get it right. 3, the trade would be difficult but not impossible. Beal would have to waive his no trade. Butler has to tell Miami it's Phoenix or bust, basically force his way here. Miami has to think Beal and whatever picks would be involved is better than salary relief or another trade. Nothing is happening anytime soon. The Suns play well next month. I doubt that they will pursue this. So there's a lot of ifs there from John, right? And this goes back to my original point as to why I didn't buy it, because you're telling the Heat, as he reported 18 months ago, the Heat weren't interested in Bradley Beal. Why weren't they interested in Bradley Beal? Because a lot of people probably think Bradley Beal's best years are behind him, and the dude has a monster contract. And if you guys go look at it, his contract basically goes the same amount of money that Jimmy Butler's does into the years that Jimmy Butler will get paid. So if you go this year, next year, and the year after that, is basically the same amount that the Heat don't want to pay Jimmy Butler. So I'm sorry. I got a hard time going back to this. The only way I see Jimmy Butler ending up on the Phoenix Suns is if Kevin Durant in some way says, I hate it here, and that is Jimmy Butler's relief. Now, why would Jimmy Butler's camp be interested in the Suns? Well, they have one of the richest owners in the sport. Like, if you're Bernie Lee and you're number one, his brother, if you're interested in getting your client and your friend his secured bag for the, that one last huge payday with this new NBA money, you're going to look for where the oil wells are. And Phoenix is certainly one of them. They've shown you, money be damned, they're going to get it done. But to say that he's going to go, oh, well, it's Phoenix or nothing, and the Heat are going to be like, cool, dude, but so what are you going to do? Walk? And you're going to walk where? To the Brooklyn Nets? Okay. Dude, the Heat had LeBron James walk on them, and they never thought it was coming. The Heat kind of having an idea that Jimmy Butler probably is going to walk. I don't know, man. I don't think you're going to strong-arm them into a contract they don't want to take on. I think that the Heat would just take the relief. And then there was another thing. I guess he was on the radio, and he had said that I would go as far as to say the Suns are his number one choice, but the Suns would not add a first-round pick in the deal. They are holding on to that pick. The Suns will win another 10 to 15 games. Gambo expects this to only happen if Butler pushes the, quote, only Phoenix button, which is kind of what Shams was putting out there. So, look, maybe this is something that Shams has heard from Phoenix's side. But again, I go to it being like, I don't see how it happens. What do you mean Jimmy Butler's how does you're going to force the Heat to take on a contract that they don't want to take on? How do they have, I would love to know the Heat taking on Bradley Beal with no assets, and why? Because Jimmy Butler's going to make a stink? No, he's not. I don't buy it, dude. I don't buy it. I think that Phoenix would be his number one choice because Phoenix will pay money. And they basically would pay at least what Bradley Beal was going to get, and they're getting a better player. But I don't buy the fact that Miami is going to be like, cool, we'll take Bradley Beal as the consolation prize. I'm sorry. They didn't want to go to that well, as John reported a year ago. Why would they want to do it a year later for the same contract that they won't give Jimmy Butler? I just don't see it. I don't see it. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with that. So I guess, but this was the interesting thing in all of this is if the Phoenix interest is legit, and now you have multiple people reporting it, but you have Jimmy Butler's camp being like, no. And again, I got to go back to and then you had Mickey Harrison retweet that. I guess could look into a way of I guess I could look into this way, the Heat and Jimmy are going to seem in lockstep so the Heat can get as much as they can from Phoenix from an asset standpoint. But if you're Jimmy, why would you want Phoenix to give up as much as they can? You would want Phoenix to give up as little as possible. That's typically how these whole leverage plays work. So I just got a hard time believing it. And then also in the idea of you're going to wait 15 games to see what happens. We'll see, where they're at. Do they feel comfortable about it? Okay. But I I got a hard time believing you're gonna be convincing Mickey Arison to take on a contract that he already said no to, and in a player who, like, does Bradley Beal fit on the Miami Heat? Tyler Hero is outplaying him this year. He just cooked them pretty recently on both floors. He outplayed all of them. You tell me where the Heat are going to be backed into a corner here. Because the thing is like, oh, you're going to lose Jimmy Butler for nothing. Great. Okay, so our option is to take on more money. What kind of a leverage play is that to a team? They'll be like, would you rather have to pay more money or pay no money? What's the leverage play? You know what I mean? And then, like, the other thing is, all right, let's say then the Heat are kind of be in a position of, all right, well, what if Jimmy Butler what if there's a bidding war drummed up for Jimmy Butler? He's like, oh, I'm only going to go here. Cool, dude. And like, what is then the Heat are kind of in the whole, will they do right by Jimmy Butler? I doubt they're going to take all more money for him. The whole point of this thing is the Heat don't want to pay Jimmy Butler. If the Heat were going to pay, like, in my mind, it would honestly, to be fair, honestly about this, if it ever got to the point where the Heat did this and did bring on Bradley Beal, and you brought on Bradley Beal and just didn't pay Jimmy Butler, it would go down as one of the worst moves in Heat history. Really would. Like, the idea that you would run off one of your franchise icons and take on the same money that you weren't willing to pay him in the first place with another player is would not only be nauseating, it would legitimately feel like one of the worst moves in franchise history. So I just don't see it. I don't deny that there seems to be more smoke as far as, like, have they talked about the Phoenix thing? Because their owner is a crazy person who will spend crazy money and will make Jimmy Butler happy and sign him to whatever. Okay, does seem like there's a little bit more smoke to it. But it also seems pretty impossible to get the Heat to agree to deal this unless one of the pieces coming back is Kevin Durant. If it's Durant, okay. If it's going to be Beal, Booker, and Jimmy, because they feel like whatever, KD's a miserable dude, then okay. Then you're talking about a guy that Riley's been going after forever, a guy with a relationship with Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo. I could see it more. Less redundant of a player next to Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo. And because Beal does have a good relationship with Bam. Most people, a lot of players in the league do. But yeah, man, I don't know. The whole, it's going to be the Jimmy is, it's Phoenix or nowhere. Like, okay, well, if you don't want to be in the place you're at next year, just opt out, dog. Like, go wherever you want to go. And this is all to be said. Like, don't forget, guys, my initial hope was I wanted Jimmy Butler paid. I still would love it if the Heat could work on an organization. I want Jimmy Butler to retire on the Heat. But I'm just saying, when I read this stuff from other organizations, I'm like, okay, if you're going to strong arm a team, like, don't you have to strong arm them in a way that, like, they kind of have to, like, they kind of would agree to, in some regard? I don't know. This one just made zero sense to me. And still, even if there is more smoke around it, still makes zero sense for the Miami Heat to pull this off for Bradley Beal. So Ira did make this one point on this, which I hadn't considered, but he had said, for the Suns to trade Jimmy Butler because Phoenix is over the second neighborhood of luxury tax, they can only send out a single player in a trade. Therefore, either Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, or Bradley Beal would have to go out. However, it could be a 3-team trade where, say, Beal goes to one team and that team sends multiple players or other assets to Miami. All this is conjecture at this stage. This message has been brought to you by Jimmy Butler's hair. I hadn't considered the 3-team trade because, honestly, the apron thing, I'm still a little bit screwy on, all this stuff. Here's the thing with that, though. It's a big if because it's like, again, Bradley Beal has to agree to that team. And Bradley Beal is very stringent on keeping that no-trade clause. He's one of the rare players in the league that has it. So, let's just make it, I guess you would have to make it like, is that like then if Jimmy only wanted to go to the Suns and the Warriors were still looking for somebody, then does he get flipped to the Warriors and the Warriors give the Heat picks? I suppose that's another element and another avenue just theoretically we could go down. My head hurts. It's late. Love you, Heat Nation. We'll talk to you in the next video.